Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I'm so glad that you've joined us this morning. We have a lot to cover. Some updates, kind of the civil war within the Democrat Party. We're going to talk about that. A lot of New York State updates as well. But let's get right to it with a viewer comment that came in last night saying, "Good morning, Frank." Well, good morning to you. I'm wondering why the Republicans are squandering the power they have now. Instead, they seem to be sitting on their hands a lot. Remember when the Democrats were in power, they undid everything Trump, flooded the borders with illegals, etc. They pretty much went berserk, creating more problems than they solved. I suppose it's easier to get your way when you control the news media. The Republicans in office need to have a more united front, just like the Democrats. The Save America Act is a no-brainer. Why do the Democrats seem to still control everything? I thought Republicans have the majority. And you are speaking the language of so many people out there. That's why there's a major concern about the midterms. That it's not necessarily the Democrats energized to get out and vote. There is that. But there's the empathy, the lack of excitement from Republicans, because it seems like, we've had this conversation before, where a lot of people that got out to support Trump, that voted Republicans in, gave them that power of the majority, the House, the Senate, and the White House, and some basic, to use that viewer's term, no-brainer laws are not getting done. There's actually a piece that fits in perfectly with what that viewer's saying, and it's by Ralph Norman saying House Republicans did what voters asked, and we have the receipts, but now it's up to the Senate. He said, as I travel across South Carolina, whether I'm meeting with business owners, farmers, veterans, or families at community events, I continue to hear the same question. Congressman, if Republicans keep winning elections, why does it seem so difficult to get anything done in Washington? Again, this is Ralph Norman, representing the 5th District of South Carolina. And it's a fair question, and frankly, it's one Republicans should answer. The American people understand elections, and they understand mandates. What they don't understand is why Republicans can win the White House and majorities in both chambers of Congress, yet still struggle to enact the very agenda they promised the voters. That's not simply a political problem, it's a governing problem. The American people returned President Trump to the White House with a clear mandate to secure the border, restore fiscal discipline, unleash American energy, and put America first. They didn't elect Republicans to spend the next 4 years explaining why Washington can't keep its promises. They elected us to produce results. That's why I proudly voted for the Save America Act as it came before the House of Representatives. House Republicans debated the legislation, voted for it, and passed it. We did our job, and the responsibility now shifts to the United States Senate. The House has shown what's possible when Republicans are willing to fight for the agenda voters elected us to deliver, and the Senate should bring the same sense of urgency to its work. Unfortunately, that's where the American people often lose confidence that Washington can deliver. Too many bills supported by the president and approved by the House disappear into a senatorial procedural maze that few Americans understand and even fewer believe serves the country. Conservatives rightly respect the Senate as one of our nation's great institutions. It was designed to encourage debate, protect minority viewpoints, and ensure legislation receives careful consideration before becoming law. Those traditions matter, and they should not be discarded lightly. But respecting the Senate does not mean refusing to examine whether its rules still serve the purpose for which they were created. I've said before that the Senate should consider restoring the talking filibuster, and I continue to believe it deserves serious consideration, not because Republicans should fear debate, but because we should insist upon it. If senators want to stop legislation supported by the president and passed by the House, they should have every opportunity to make their case. But they should make it on the Senate floor, before the American people, instead of allowing procedural maneuvering to obscure one of the most important debates before Congress. This isn't about weakening the Senate. It's about restoring accountability. Americans deserve to know who is standing in the way of legislation and why they're standing in the way. Debate has always strengthened our republic, whereas invisible obstruction never has. Trump has made the Save America Act one of his highest legislative priorities because he understands a simple truth. Elections matter only if government is willing to carry out the mandate voters have given it. Republicans should be willing to consider every constitutional option available to ensure legislation supported by the president, passed by the House, and backed by the American people receive a fair opportunity to succeed in the Senate. Republicans have spent years asking the American people for a unified government so we can secure the border, restore American energy, rein in spending, and put America first. We should not be surprised when those same voters grow frustrated if, after entrusting us with that responsibility, Washington responds by saying the rules simply won't allow us to deliver. Senate rules should protect debate, encourage accountability, and strengthen our institutions, but they should never become an excuse for failing to keep our word. The American people don't expect Republicans to win elections simply to explain why nothing can be done. They expect us to find a way to get the job done. House Republicans have done our part. It's time for Senate Republicans to do theirs. So that's Republican Ralph Norman, representing the 5th District of South Carolina. It just fit perfectly in that frustration that that viewer expressed. And again, it's one of the major fears of the midterm, where a Republican who normally would vote may say, well, you know what? We keep voting these Republicans in, and they're not accomplishing what they said that they were going to do. Now, again, to Mr. Norman's point, the House has, the president has, it's the Senate that has been lacking in this. And Speaker Mike Johnson, his latest bid to go around Democrat opposition to the SAVE Act survived a key hurdle yesterday evening. The SAVE Act has faced significant headwinds in Congress despite having Trump's full-throated support. While it passed the House, the legislation has struggled in the Senate, where at least several Democrat votes are needed to break a filibuster and advance to final passage. But the new plan by Speaker Johnson, which would allow key parts of the bill to skirt Democrats entirely, is one step closer to getting a House-wide vote sometime this week. Republicans would erase the need for a Democrat buy-in by putting key elements of the Save America Act into a larger budget reconciliation bill. The reconciliation process allows the party in power to pass sweeping fiscal policy reforms without input from the opposition by lowering the Senate's threshold for passage to line up with the House's simple majority requirement. But there are strict guidelines for what can be done in a reconciliation bill. Such legislation must deal with yearly federal spending and revenue, meaning issues that do not directly affect fiscal policy are generally excluded. House Republicans are aiming to use the reconciliation bill to fund states' election integrity efforts, replenish military funding amid the U.S. war with Iran, and dole out aid to American farmers. In total, the legislation would set the stage for $95 billion in new federal spending across the next 10 years. So we'll keep an eye on that. The vote is expected to occur Tuesday afternoon today, with the final vote taking place the following day, meaning tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Trump urged Republicans to advance the bill earlier yesterday, arguing that it would, quote, get as much of the Save America Act as possible in a budget bill, along with aid to our incredible farmers and funding for our military. Democrats, meanwhile, have accused Republicans of trying to unfairly sway elections with the Save America Act. Hakeem Jeffries, who's in quite a struggle, as he has his eye on the Speaker if Democrats take over the majority. Now, there's so much of that infighting where the DSA-type members of the Democrat Party are not big fans of Mr. Jeffries or Chuck Schumer as of right now. But Hakeem Jeffries said this is a phony issue that Donald Trump is creating. What's amazing to me is that Donald Trump had the nerve to say to the Speaker of the House, who apparently didn't object, that the most important thing that Republicans should focus on is voter suppression legislation, and that housing doesn't matter. Healthcare doesn't matter. Grocery bills don't matter. And, of course, Chuck Schumer using his old line, calling it Jim Crow 2.0. So there's a fight ahead. But to that viewer's point, I understand the frustration. I understand where it seems as if many Republicans, mostly in the Senate, just can't get the job done. Now, you do have the flies in the ointment, the people that were voted out in their primary because President Trump endorsed their opponent, Thomas Massey's and like that. But a lot of those people, come off looking pathetic when when they go against what the voters originally put them in for. But also some were just always going to be a no vote for anything the president did. I have a couple odd things to mention here to kind of kick off the broadcast that there is no real segue to, but I think still worth noting. Then we're going to give you an update on Iran and a few things here because this infighting on the left is really fascinating. We're going to tell you what's happening there. But first, have you seen this viral video? An older man, what looks like to be at a recent Cubs game, took issue with a younger fan. The young fan decided he wasn't going to stand during the national anthem. So the older man starts yelling at the younger man to get up. The man then leaned down to whisper something in the seated man's ear before smacking him in the back of the head. So the old man goes to whisper something to him to get his attention and then slaps him in the back of the head for not standing up for the national anthem. The younger man then stood up as onlookers turned to catch sight of what was going on. The older man said, thank you so much, young man," after the young fan followed his demand and actually stood up after getting clobbered in the head. Thank you so much, young man." The video, which has reached over 2 million views, has sparked debates online, much like the moment. Some defended the older man's actions, holding the opinion that choosing to sit is disrespectful to the country, while others said he took things too far, and striking someone over a decision they rightfully made was not the right call. So your thoughts, I'm posing that to you. One person saying, "It looks like no one standing around had a problem with the love tap, reminding the dude, in case he forgot, to show respect for our country." Another countered, it is his right to sit. That's what the country's all about, freedom. He's still a blank, but this isn't a dictatorship yet. He shouldn't have slapped the kid unless the kid was his grandson, nephew, or such. And Pops was administering a respectful lesson. Keep your hands to yourself. Acceptance of such small acts leads up the ladder to bigger ones. An online debate continued to rage. Legal experts noted that such an action can constitute battery under certain circumstances. As of Monday, it seems the incident will fade into memory, but it remains to be seen whether further action will be taken. So the viral video demanding that the young person at the Cubs game stand up in respect for the national anthem. Hey, and we're going to talk about the New York issues, a lot of New York issues, later on in the broadcast. I meant to mention this to you yesterday. I just completely ran out of time. We've been talking about the kind of the change of the lexicon, that we had that bill in New York that was changing the term mother and father or parents, with changing all these kind of these nuances and names, non-gestating individual, that kind of idea. Well, here's a new one. New York City's jail, they're set to get a little woker. And we know that the politicians, not just in the city, but in all New York State, like to coddle criminals. No longer will you call the criminals inmates or inmate. Now they will be people in custody or person in custody. Now the rule change in the Board of Corrections swaps the word inmate or inmates with people in custody or person in custody more than 300 times. Criminal justice advocates claim that inmates is a derogatory term for incarcerated criminal defendants or convicts. Saying, quote, in 2021, the board made a commitment to employ person-first language in its minimum standards and communications by deleting references to inmates in favor of person-first terms, such as people in custody, and using gender-inclusive language in Chapter 1 of the minimum standards. The board proposes continuing this vital effort in Chapters 2 and 3. All right. Governor Hochul approved a law in 2022 that strikes the word inmate in state law, replacing it with incarcerated individual. I don't know. That might not work. People in custody or person in custody. Now we're having a little bit of a woke battle. Who is more woke? Who is more caring for the criminals? Individuals impacted by the criminal justice system have long noted that terms such as felon, inmate, prisoner, and convict dehumanize individuals and perpetrate the idea that incarcerated people should be permanently demonized and stigmatized, Hochul said at the time. The New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, in its mission statement, said it serves the need of the incarcerated population. Meanwhile, the New York City Department of Corrections, which oversees the Big Apple's municipal jails, including Rikers, refers to an incarcerated individual in its care as a person in custody. There you go. Always focused on what's so important here in New York. All right, we got to take a short break. When we come back, some updates on Iran. What else we got? Well, we got a lot to get to, but I'm running late, so stay with us.
What better way to start or end every day than relaxing in your very own Hesselson's hot tub? Massage therapy, relaxation, stress reliever, pain management, soothing muscles, or just spending time with a loved one. Hot water therapy really does make every day better. Hesselson's has been a part of this great community for over 70 years, still being locally owned and operated. So make the drive to Hesselson's and start making your path to a better life today. And after 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
One big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows. with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than music.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. We had control of the House and the Senate in the past and nothing changed. They have to want to make it happen. But I think both parties are corrupted and some players have a price. Nothing new under the sun. Thank you very much. Now, President Trump took to Truth Social yesterday afternoon, saying that Iran will pay many times over for each American service member it kills, saying, quote, every time Iran kills an American soldier, they will pay for that killing many times over. This directive has been passed on to the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Daniel Kane, Elmira native, and every leader in the military. He ordered airstrikes. This will be the 10th straight night. Today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this was yesterday, U.S. forces began a new round of strikes against Iran at the Commander-in-Chief's direction, said CENTCOM. The strikes are designed to further degrade Iranian military capabilities used to attack commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. The assault wrapped up around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, saying, quote, U.S. forces struck Iranian military command centers, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and air defense systems. You can actually see the videos online. Commercial vessels transit through the vital international maritime corridor continue. Since early May, CENTCOM forces have helped facilitate the transit of approximately 900 commercial vessels and 450 million barrels of crude oil. Now, it is being reported that President Trump is revisiting regime change. And I know a lot of people, especially on the conservative side, that are hoping this leads to a regime change, that this was kind of hopefully the goal for quite some time. Elements of the Trump administration are once again flirting with Plan A, which is to topple the Iranian regime. That is being reported by the Financial Times. In its analysis, they also said efforts to encourage an international uprising in Iran were back on Washington's agenda. The report added, an earlier Israeli proposal to arm Kurdish groups opposed to Tehran was rejected by the administration, but could now be reviewed as policymakers search for alternative options. So could be going the route of regime change, and I know there's been a lot of people in the conservative side of things that have called for exactly that. Now, Mark Kelly, and we might talk about him later on, the Atlantic did a glowing, I think it was about 17-page piece on Mark Kelly, because a lot of people on the Democrat side want him to run for president. It was being reported at the time that Barack Obama wanted him to actually be the candidate and not Kamala Harris when Joe Biden dropped out. Senator Mark Kelly said that every service member who volunteers to join the U.S. military deploy overseas, they understand the risk. The risk is from doing something that it's furtherance of our safety and our national security. People get that. I flew 39 combat missions in the first Gulf War. We've got millions of veterans that have fought overseas over the years, over the decades. And you know, that's part of the deal. What you don't expect is to have a president that takes us into a conflict without an explainable strategic goal, without a plan, without a timeline, without an exit strategy. And what I see now is I see an administration flailing. He's back to talking about nuclear weapons. The Iranians weren't accelerating the development of nuclear weapons. They're pretty much at the same place they were when I came into the Senate 5.5 years ago. So how do you explain to those family members like that? Why did your sons and daughters, in this case, parents, in a lot of cases, children, why did they lose their lives? What was that for? How did they make us safer? And the result is, not only is this not making us safer, people are losing their lives, it's also having the huge impact on the American people. you're to see farms and ranches start going out of business because of a president who fundamentally doesn't know what he's doing and can't think strategically. Former President Barack Obama suggested that J.D. Vance was pushing a blood and soil vision for the country despite being married to the daughter of an immigrant. Just talking in general, some various different issues. I told you there's no way to segue. Was that my last thing on Iran, actually, before I jumped ahead? It's impossible to spend a lot of time thinking about Reconstruction without reflecting on the present day, right? Obama said. Because these issues are, while they're still there, if somebody is asking why it is relevant to talk about Reconstruction, I have to describe for them the degree to which they're having these arguments. The issue of how are you going to help the freed people who've been enslaved? What are you going to do to give them, to allow them to have a go at life? What does real freedom mean? We have politics now that at least one of our major parties has been captured by politics that is not that subtle about suggesting that we the people means a certain kind of people. When you have the vice president, current vice president, making a speech that is basically a blood and soil version of the we the people, that it matters who your parents were and how long they've been here, despite him being married to a daughter of an immigrant himself. That echoes then ideas about who can be a citizen, who belongs, who gets to make decisions. So all these issues are still being debated, sometimes not as bluntly and explicitly as they have in the past, but they're still there. Now, the reason I mention this is because of the rhetoric, and we're going to talk about rhetoric later on, but blood and soil refers to a phrase popularized by Nazi Germany and associated with white nationalism. We're going to tell you about that a little bit later on because the Democrat Socialists of America are suggesting, some groups are suggesting that they're white supremacists. We'll talk about that in a moment. But he went, so he went on to accuse Vance of hypocrisy. Obama said, that is progress. Listen, hypocrisy is progress. It is because it means that you feel guilty enough to either lie to yourself or others. And that is better than not thinking about the idea that maybe we're doing something wrong. And then he went on to kind of degrade Vance some more. All right. Also, no, yeah. Okay. I don't know why that got kind of out of order. I apologize. But I did want to mention that before I forgot. Also, Trump said yesterday that Netanyahu will not be arrested during his New York City visit. We know Mayor Mamdani called for the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu when he attends that UN meeting in New York City. President Trump said Benjamin Netanyahu will not be arrested in any way, shape, or form while in the United States of America. He is fighting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, which recently killed 52,000 innocent protesters and has spent the last 47 years killing American soldiers and others. Now, Mayor Mamdani, who we will be talking about a little bit later on when we talk about the Democrat Socialists of America, he doubled down on his threat to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu, this coming in late yesterday, saying, my administration will follow all applicable laws, according to CBS News. I believe that when someone is charged with an international criminal court warrant, it's something that should be taken seriously, whether it's Benjamin Netanyahu or it's Vladimir Putin or whomever else. What I've also made clear is that my administration will follow all applicable local laws. As CBS reported, there really is no local law governing the arrest of a foreign head of state. Federal law dictates foreign policy and diplomatic relations. What that ultimately means is Zohran Mamdani cannot arrest Netanyahu, and if he did, federal agents would have to intervene. He loves the attention. He has to prove his kind of anti-Jewish bona fides to the Democrat Socialists of America. Now, we mentioned what President Trump said. Senator John Fetterman from Pennsylvania said, so he's just a clown to even say that. Jewish leaders, Rabbi Chaim Steinmetz of the Rabbi Congregation, said the mayor's threat to go after Netanyahu can lead to a rise in anti-Semitism. That does not seem to be something that concerns Mr. Mamdani. He's doing it purely for political theater. He's doing it because he's a demagogue. He knows that by demonizing Israel, he can rile up his base. And unfortunately, the side effect of that is that Jews in New York City feel the side effects of this anti-Zionist baiting. It empowers anti-Semites. That's the problem with the mayor's rhetoric, and he refuses to see it. He refuses to take a look at what anti-Zionist rhetoric can do. Because I have to tell you that when people raise to the level of hatred of Israel in the streets, It's the Jews that are going to get attacked. Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, said the person who should be arrested is not our prime minister. It is you, Mr. Mamdani, the same mayor who continues to fuel anti-Semitism across New York, and now the same mayor who threatens Israel's prime minister with arrest powers he does not have. All right, there we go. There's a couple international updates. We got to take a short break, running a tad bit late. Keep those waves, keep those comments coming in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Watch news from the Twin Tiers and catch local events on Facebook.com/Big Fox News. Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
Yeah, hello. I'm really not sure if this is what you all do, but I really don't have anywhere else to turn.
Hi. I don't even know why I'm calling right now. I'm sorry. My thoughts are going a mile a minute.
My kids are out of state. My buddies from the army are all gone now. I'm really alone.
I left the service last year. My mom just passed away a few months ago. I miss so much time with her. I keep getting calls about the bills, and I'm trying to get a job, but I feel so stuck. Okay, ma'am. I'm glad you called.
Okay, sir. Let's stay on the line and walk through some things.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go through some viewer comments. The Republicans need to get united behind the president. My thoughts regarding those who vote with Democrats are really just Democrats who ran on a Republican platform. Thank you. And there's some that just like the attention too. But I would agree with you. If you vote with Democrats more, especially in the major votes, those are the frustrating ones. Quoting Obama? Really? Who cares what he thinks? Plus, he's a Democrat, which makes quoting him a has-been, biased, anti-American Democrat even more maddening and insulting. So encouraging no quoting of a former president. Comment from and Obama had a lot to do with the auto pen. I think Obama had a lot to do with the auto pen, sure. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, you would think so. All right, comment from Jack. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Jack. As far as slapping that young person for not standing up for the anthem, I'm thinking both people are equally wrong when it comes to respect. However, physical contact pushed the envelope. As we age, young people need to be more aware that us old guards age, look around and look out. Respect or suffer the consequences. We were raised during a time when school teachers kept a ping pong paddle in or around their desk and was a normal, accepted practice. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. Yesterday, President Trump hit Canada with that surprise 50% tariff. And I guess it's being reported that he didn't give Carney a heads up when they talked at the World Cup. 50% tariff on certain Canadian goods, a movement to combat what the administration described as the country's continuous discrimination on American products. The new tax hike will apply to a range of imports, including wine, hockey sticks, and cement, and goes into effect in 30 days. But the administration indicated that it was open for negotiations on the matter, saying, quote, Canada has retained substantial retaliation against the United States. These are defensive measures by the U.S. taken to remedy discriminatory actions by Canada, vowing the administration would hold America's northern neighbor, quote, accountable. There will be exemptions for energy and essential goods like fish and critical minerals. This is not a trade war with Canada, the official insisted, and the president was trying to right the trade imbalance between the two nations. Now, this will come as a shock to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney. Trump did not mention it during the World Cup finals on Friday. The official saying, although the president and the prime minister met and they had a one-on-one, it was not a visit to talk about trade and tariffs from our perspective. And there is the potential for more tariffs to come, according to the Trump administration. Trump told reporters on Sunday, maybe they should pay us some damages or something, or we should do some tariffs. And that's in reference to the wildfire smoke. We had that great quote from Congressman Langworthy last week, calling Canada out for their failed policies that keep leading to this disastrous air quality, the wildfire smoke. That seems as if something we're going to have to deal with yearly now. The president said, these are not the so-called wildfire tariffs. This is what the official said. The president has asked for options on that, and options are being shared with him. The U.S. goods trade deficit with Canada was $46.4 billion in 2025. There you go. So if you were going to buy a hockey stick, you better do it before that 30-day window. Yesterday, it was also reported, I don't know if you saw this. This is scary. A crazed former U.S. Army soldier and National Guardsman set off fireworks and lit a fire outside a Manhattan Federal building yesterday, in an apparent anti-ICE terror attack. By the way, it is being reported, we may talk about this a little bit more when we get to our New York State issues, but the Department of Justice is saying that we cannot force the ICE agents to take off their masks or wear pink. There was talks of that at one point. We'll mention that later on in the broadcast. But this anti-ICE terror attack, allegedly by Andrew Arabaka, 43, a veteran from Poughkeepsie. He came armed and with bad intentions to the Federal Plaza, where he fired 5 to 7 pellets from an airsoft rifle at the building before lighting fireworks and sparking a blaze around 8:30 a.m. James Barnacle, assistant director in charge of the FBI New York field office, said he is an anti-American, anti-government extremist. Arabica allegedly had various weapons, including 2 axes, a hammer, a machete, and 3 fixed-blade knives, as well as the 6 other incendiary devices. Wild videos showed the raving suspect hurling fireworks into raging flames right outside of the downtown building in the front entrance, with one exploding loudly as a security officer and then police tackled him to the ground. Officials said later they quickly doused the flames. 4 people were treated for minor injuries. 1 person was taken to New York Presbyterian Hospital, and 3 others refused medical attention. The Jacob K. Javits Federal Office Building is home to New York's ICE field office in Manhattan, as well as offices for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Immigration Court, and other federal agencies. The historic building became a focal point during Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration last year, with protests on a regular basis. The building was attacked, Barnacle said. Mr. Arabaka was looking to injure people and harm people. Officers quickly recovered the individual's bag, which contained what appeared to be 2 pellet guns and a manifesto. They did not initially reveal what is in the manifesto quite yet. This coming off of the rhetoric against ICE agents working this man. Again, you can't be corrupted by hate for so long and something like this not happen with the rhetoric that we're seeing. Now, Arabica served in the U.S. Army from 2001 to 2004 and served in the Army National Guard in New York until July 2005, according to an Army spokesperson. He left the Army with the rank of specialist. Governor Kathy Hochul said Arabica sought to create not just a disturbance but fear. State police are always working in situations like this. Apparently, he's been on the radar of law enforcement before, so we have records that we're sharing, and so we'll find out the motivation, but it's absolutely unacceptable. All right, so that was your update from yesterday. All right, we got more to cover. We got a lot of breaking news that we had to get to. I wanted to remind you, if you missed the announcement, on tomorrow's broadcast, we're going to talk with our good friend Doc Possum. You recall all of his great music during the Salvation Army Telethon, which that gives me a perfect opportunity. Don't forget to give, matching up to $1,000. This is, I guess, a Christmas in July scenario. We're nearly out of time. There's a group that's not the same as the Great Donor that does that for the Frankly Speaking Telethon. This is a different group that's doing this, but matching up to $1,000. So if you haven't done so, something as simple as $5 will mean $10 for the Salvation Army. $100 will mean $200. So please help out the Salvation Army of Corning. Give a little, change a lot. But I mentioned that because Doc Possum, who does so much great music for us during the Salvation Army Telethon, he's going to join us to tell us a little bit about what's going on this summer, what he's been up to. Will give us an opportunity to give him big thanks for all that music at Christmas time. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
Time to go to the gym? The health club is not an option? Come to Hesselson today and see why swim spas and fitness systems can fit into anyone's yard and budget. 12-foot, 14-foot, 15-foot, 18-foot dual temperature hot tubs and swim spas are all on display in Hesselson's indoor and outdoor showroom. Try before you buy. 0% interest-free financing options are available on every Hesselson swim spa. Swim and exercise year-round and start making every day better. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
When a child is fighting a critical illness, one truth touches us all. Every child deserves a childhood. A wish sparks a ripple of hope that transforms communities far and wide. And when we grant wishes together, we create a movement of kindness, strength, and unity. Become a wishmaker today and be part of a journey that truly changes lives.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we head.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. So your thoughts, I don't know, did we see this coming or no? So we know that Lindsey Graham's sister was appointed to her position, to his position to fill out the remainder of his term, which that would have been until November. Now she announced yesterday she is going to run for the full term. We didn't predict that on the program, but I would also say it doesn't necessarily come as a surprise. Darlene Graham Norden announced that she intends to run for a full 6-year term in the Senate. I've been praying a lot, talking to my family, she told Hannity. I know I'm a hard worker. Lindsey cared about the people of this state. I've worked for almost 30 years for the people of this state. I feel like I can do it. I feel an inner peace about it. I made a decision. I'm in. Now, if you recall, I did say at the time, again, I'm not pretending I predicted this, but we did say that there's the power of the incumbency, even if it's only a couple of months. That's why a lot of people had thought, well, maybe they could put in a different candidate that could run. But in this case, it's not a bad idea for her to declare. You've got the power of the incumbency. You've got her brother's legacy. So, again, I'm not going to say I was surprised in any way, shape, or form, but also I don't think we had predicted it. I've thought and I've prayed, and he's worked so hard for so long. I can't just let that die, she said of her late brother. I've got to step in and carry on his legacy. He taught me well. I learned a lot from Lindsey. The filing deadline for the GOP nod for South Carolina's Senate seat opens today, giving the newly minted interim senator just about a week to formalize her bid. Notably, her decision has to be made before her brother's funeral on July 28th, which has been delayed due to the scores of world leaders and dignitaries who wanted to attend. The primary will take place on August 11th. So this is a really quick primary scenario. I'm just taking it day by day, Norton said. I'm not going to lie, it's been tough, extremely tough. She described learning of her beloved brother's death as a living nightmare. I can't tell you how devastated I was when I got that call. It was so hard, but things just started moving so fast. I never occurred to me, that was Lindsey's life, not mine, meaning when they suggested that she be nominated to fill out his term. I never wanted to be a politician or a senator, but when they asked, it didn't take me long. I prayed, I talked to my family, and I knew that I had to step in. I had to carry on his legacy. Initially, Norton was seen as just a placeholder for the role, and a handful of Republicans such as Representative Nancy Mace and Ralph Norman may be why we had that article about him at the beginning of the program. He might be trying to get in the headlines. They began exploring a possible run for the seat. Representative Russell Fry announced Monday he will enter the race, setting up a potential face-off with Trump's choice. Trump publicly implored Norton to go for the job just days after McMaster chose her to serve out the final months, saying, "We have known each other for a long time. She is a spectacular person and a true American patriot." During her visit, I asked Norton, for the good of our nation, to run for the U.S. Senate in the special Republican primary on Tuesday, August 11th. I hope Norton does this, in that there would be nobody better to honor the legacy of her beloved brother, Lindsey. Norton said she was surprised by the endorsement, saying, "I was not expecting that. It is a tremendous amount of pressure." She confirmed she met with Trump, J.D. Vance, Susie Wiles, and Steve Witkoff in the Oval Office last week, and recalled telling the president two things. I said, "I can tell you this about me. I will work hard and I'm loyal." The senator further revealed that she had asked her brother to slow down before his death and expressed concerns about his travel schedule and health. "I was concerned about him. I'm like, Lindsey, it's a lot. I want you to slow down and take care of yourself." He didn't take care of himself. If I could go back and beg and plead and get him to do better, I would. He was on a mission from God, I think. Now, what's going to be interesting is she's running, Lindsey Graham, foreign policy hawk. A lot of people were critical at times, for lack of a better word, about his normally going in the direction of some type of war, some type of aggression, if you will. That is not going to be Darlene Graham's focus. She said she's going to focus on kitchen table issues. She said, "I used to see him on the talk shows," meaning her brother. "I would watch him and he'd be like, 'Lindsey, are you talking about national security all the time?' And I understand that's important. Protect our borders, national security, absolutely." I said, "But talk about also what matters to the average person. The price of groceries, the price of gas, healthcare, insurance, those kinds of things. That's what I'm worried about." So we'll see how this goes. This is going to be kind of interesting. I'm sure there were some Republicans that were in line thinking that they were going to be next, and she has now, in it, power of the incumbency is going to be big. That 6 months of her having the job, surprisingly, that goes a very, very long way. So we'll be watching that campaign. I've got an update, a couple things here on Trump, and then we're going to get to the Democrat Party and this push towards the Democrat Socialists of America, because there's so much infighting. I know you're going to find it really quite fascinating. And we do have New York State updates, quite a few of them. So we are just getting warmed up, but boy, this show's going quickly. I think about 15 minutes left in the first hour, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
We are the keepers of the wild, America's original and most invested conservationists. For more than 80 years, we've been committed to conserving wildlife and the natural landscapes that define our nation. From rugged alpine ridgelines to peaceful tall grass prairies, we've supported the conservation of more than 36 million acres of American wildlands. Our funding has led to cleaner water, fresher air, and improved wildlife habitat. From abundant fish and waterfowl populations to robust deer and elk herds, nothing is more important than maintaining wild spaces for adventurers to explore and wildlife to thrive. We are America's hunters and target shooters, stewards of the American outdoors.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Liz Peek highlights something here, and we were just talking about Lindsey Graham's sister, talking about kind of the bread and butter issues. What Liz Peek's argument is that President Trump has a good story to tell on the economy, and he should be telling it because it's a sure bet the liberal media will not. And what the argument here is that the economy is doing much better than the mainstream media wants to admit. Consider the big picture. Unemployment is low. Real wages are rising. The stock market is high. Investment is booming. And inflation, though above the Federal Reserve's target, came down last month and will recede again once oil prices stabilize. Inflation, most recently at 3.5% and at a 2.6% excluding volatile food and energy, is also significantly lower than the 4.95% recorded on average under Joe Biden's administration. And that's what's so important here. And we've been talking about this for decades, really, that when a Republican's in office, they show, soup lines. They want everything to sound like the Great Depression. When a Democrat is in office, again, higher inflation under Biden, you would think that the economy was just fine and booming. The Conservative Committee to Unleash Prosperity reports that during the first 16 months of Trump's current term, real incomes for the lowest 25% of earners increased almost $2,100, while they actually shrank under the Biden administration. Additionally, the Bank of America Institute writes that total credit and debit card spending rising 6.3% year over year in June, the strongest growth in over 4 years. Importantly, the Institute further reports that gaps in wage and spending growth across income groups narrowed. Income inequality is actually shrinking under Trump. Yes, but you sure won't hear that from Bloomberg or CNBC. They're too busy convincing voters that Republicans are focused on pumping up the wealthy at the expense of, everybody else. Sure, we have challenges, as always, and especially with the cost of living being too high and housing too expensive for many Americans. But overall, the economy is in pretty good shape. That's not what most people think, however. A CNBC survey shows 61% of the public is pessimistic about the current state of the economy and about the outlook for the future. A Washington Post Ipsos poll puts the president's approval rating on the economy at a dismal 33%. Why the disconnect? The incessant negativity of the Trump-hating media and also the inability of many Republicans to articulate the benefits of lower taxes and lighter regulations. If your own team can't sell your success, you're in trouble. For instance, GOP candidates should be talking up the Trump accounts. Over 6 million children have already signed up for these deferred investment accounts, of which 1.4 million qualify for a $1,000 contribution from the Treasury. Dell CEO Michael Dell, who, with his wife Susan, donated $6.25 billion to the program. So what the research shows us pretty clearly is that when a kid has even a small account in his name, they start to see themselves differently. And that shows up in graduation rates and home ownership and the business they start. That's not just a financial outcome. It's a mindset shift. And she goes through and talks about some of the other things that Republicans should focus on. Such as, she says, instead, Republicans appear on the cusp of passing a meager $95 billion reconciliation bill that mostly funds defense needs and helps farmers. So narrow is that legislation that some GOP House members are talking about the possible fourth reconciliation bill to include other unaddressed priorities. Why are Republicans playing defense? And this has kind of been the theme of this morning's broadcast. Why aren't they Why aren't they taking what may be their last chance to create a bill that offers much needed relief on housing, for instance? Many have proposed indexing the capital gains tax on home sales to inflation to loosen up supply. Many older people especially cannot afford to sell their long-held homes because of the taxes they would owe. Why not fix that? Why, in short, are Republicans in a defensive crouch? Democrats in charge of the most expensive cities and states in the U.S. are laughably telling voters that their party is concerned with affordability. They also have, despite 4 years under Biden when inflation soared to 40-year highs, convinced voters that Republicans cannot be trusted to produce an economy that makes their lives better. Democrats argue that GOP's tax cuts have benefited only the wealthy. That is not true. The big beautiful bill features like an expanded tax credit or child tax credit and standard deduction, no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, benefited millions of working class Americans. That is a solid win for working people in the U.S. Republicans need to hit the campaign trail armed with these facts and also with a proposal that builds on those gains. So that's Liz Peek. All right. We got to take a break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number one. Stay with us.
Looking for a meaningful day trip close to home? Visit the historic Elmira Prison Camp, one of the most significant Civil War sites in the North. Walk the grounds, stand where history happened, discover powerful stories of courage, sacrifice, and survival that shaped our nation. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a family looking to learn together, or simply exploring the Finger Lakes region, we offer an experience you won't forget. Plan your visit today at elmiracivilwar.org. Preserve, discover, remember.
Let me ask you, does it matter if the law firm you hire focuses on motor vehicle accidents? Has the experience to take on big insurance? Will go to court to win? Has won over $1 billion for their clients? If that matters to you, come to William Mattar. We are the largest motor vehicle accident firm in the state. Call William Mattar for the recovery you deserve. Hurt in a car, it matters who you hire.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we head through.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Some comments from viewers as we wrap up hour number one. Thanks to President Trump, other countries are not taking advantage of America anymore. With the announcement, the U.S. trade deficit with countries just fell to its lowest level since 2009. This didn't happen by accident. President Trump's trade agenda is delivering real results, exports up, imports down, and American workers finally getting a fair shake. Thank you very much. Ken writes in, what could be holding back Republicans from banding together to vote on conservative legislation? It is hard to find unbiased information online when looking for an answer on this, but common sense would lead you to the following conclusions. One, the public's opinion of any politician is key to getting them elected. This opinion, for most of the public, is deprived from what they hear on TV and from family and friends. There is an overwhelming number of liberal news and opinion shows on television compared to conservative news and opinion shows. When a Republican votes for a conservative bill, the huge liberal megaphone goes to work to damage them by misinformation and flat-out lies. Republicans have to weigh the benefits that they can push through for the people against the amount of damage that the liberal media will throw at them. The other tools in the liberal toolbox that are not in the conservative toolbox are doxing, death threats, property damage, and threats against families. I would assume that many conservative politicians have the mindset that they must weigh the damage that voting for a bill will bring, and that it is better to be there to get some bills through instead of not being there and getting no bills through. All that said, I go back to what I've said for years. The only way to fix this problem is rein in the legacy media and somehow make them report on politics in a fair and balanced way. Possibly conservatives need a new Elon Musk to buy up liberal outlets and close them force the news and opinion shows to be unbiased, similar to what the Soroses of the world have done in the past to conservative media. Thank you, Ken. I do appreciate that. You also have the education system, and then I've got a quick one on that when we return in the next hour. Then we're going to dive into the Democrat Party. They're infighting as we head into the midterm elections. Your thoughts about Lindsey Graham's sister saying that she will indeed run for the full 6-year term. That's going to be a quick turnaround. August 11th will be the primary day. And then if she is successful, head to the general election. Also, you can weigh in on any of the topics that we discussed this morning. There's still a lot to cover. I think you're going to find the Democrat Party infighting pretty interesting. We'll give you an update on Graham Plattner's. He didn't have the seat, but in that race, they did replace him with the person with a bad temper, which seems like problematic, but that's not our decision. And we've got some New York State issues and updates. As I said on tomorrow's broadcast, we're going to be talking with Doc Possum. Maybe even hear a little music from our pal, Doc Possum. He'll be joining us on tomorrow's broadcast, so make sure you stay tuned for that, and we'll hear how everything's going with him. All right, stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 moments away.
When you're online, don't forget to visit our Facebook page at Big Fox News. Catch up on news from the Twin Tiers and hear about local events. All on Facebook.com/Big Fox News.
Hi, this is Phil, owner of Hesselson's in Amara Heights. At Hesselson's, we care about your well-being and overall health, whether it's relieving stress, muscle recovery, increasing circulation, or just revitalizing the body. Hesselson's now has 2 complete line of infrared and traditional rock saunas in our new and expanded showroom. Come in today and see why owning a sauna is a start of your new healthy lifestyle. Hesselson's is still locally and family-owned and operated in Amira Heights. After 70 years, it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hesselson's.
Give kids time. Just 5 minutes a day. Ask them how they're feeling. And listen.
One big day of smooth jazz awaits you at the Ferrario Elmira Jazz Festival. Join us at Thorne Street Park Saturday, August 15th for chart-topping jazz keyboardist Brian Simpson and soprano saxophonist Marion Meadows with local favorite Top Shelf. Celebrate with us. Tickets only $42. It's one big day. Buy tickets at ElmiraJazzFestival.com. Brian, Marion, and Top Shelf. One big day.
It's more than
And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. All right, yesterday, the State Department published an extensive report detailing how the Communist Party of Cuba has invested over half a century in the infiltration and destruction of American politics, accusing the communists of setting the infiltration of campuses as a priority. Now, we've talked about the indoctrination on college campuses. We've talked about how this has led to the rise of really these Democrat Socialists of America candidates and this anti-Semitism. Well, the 100-page report titled Cuba, the Capital of 21st Century Communism, accused the Cuban regime of waging a sustained campaign of subversion against the U.S. Since a violent coup d'etat led by mass murderer Fidel Castro, took over the island nation back in 1959. While the vast majority of Cubans at home were subject to malnutrition, severe political and religious prosecution, and regime-led slavery for decades, the Castro regime focused its finances and resources on espionage, infiltration, sabotage, proxy networks, and a revolutionary infrastructure designed to turn America against itself. The communist regime is one of 3 nations on the State Department's state sponsor of terrorism list, alongside Iran, North Korea, and soon-to-be delisted Syria, for its sustained support of a variety of terrorist organizations. And I'm not going to go through the whole list here. But to find out, and none of this should really come as a surprise, but to encourage this type of indoctrination on college campuses, recruiting these left-wing activists and fostering anti-American sentiment on American college campuses is a significant branch of these destabilizing activities that Cuba was involved in. The report, again by the State Department, said U.S. universities are one of the premier targets of Cuba's subversion activities, serving as fertile ground for recruiting ideologically sympathetic young Americans who will ascend to positions of influence, power, and access. U.S. intelligence analyst and Cuba, main foreign intelligence agency, de facto testimony have been established that Cuban intelligence treats infiltrating American universities as a top priority. So that infiltration at American universities was Cuba's ultimate goal, a top priority. So this ties in with so much that we've talked about in the past with this indoctrination. Cuban organizations and academic institutions maintain scholarships, exchange programs, and other partnerships with a striking number of elite universities in the U.S. As of 2023, the University of Havana, a key node in the Cuban intelligence network, purportedly held educational exchange agreements with nearly 80 U.S. universities. All right, just to give you an update on that. Not necessarily a surprise, but also something that may not have been on your radar, but this ties in with the indoctrination that we've seen in general at the universities and why so many young people are going for socialism. Ricky Schlott put together a piece saying that young progressives, listen to this, young progressives, the far left, are more likely to consider normal day-to-day struggles like difficulty sleeping and feeling sad as mental health problems, according to a new analysis. Is it any wonder, given the left-leaning ideology that convinces Americans that the system is simply stacked against them? So this should come as no surprise. Data from the U.S. General Social Survey, analyzed by the Financial Times, revealed that younger people and more progressive people were more likely to believe that everything from feeling worried, trouble sleeping, and feeling a little sad were symptomatic of a disorder. Asked if a theoretical person with those symptoms was experiencing mental illness, 6 in 10 liberals said yes, compared with fewer than 3 in 10 conservatives. And more than half of those under 40 agreed, compared with just 1 in 3 over 50. So you're a little worried, you had some trouble sleeping, you maybe feel a little sad. They believe that is now a mental health disorder. And it's a part of a broader trend on the left of pathologizing everything and blaming larger forces like mental health or capitalism for normal difficulties that are simply part of your day-to-day life. The mindset permeates the left's messaging, which has long been about what Americans can't do. You can't get ahead. The system is stacked against you. Everything is out of reach. Bernie Sanders was an early adopter of this vocabulary, telling his followers that the economy is rigged against them. They can't do anything about that, the implication goes, except, of course, vote for a politician to fix the problem. It's the most disempowering message imaginable, delivered straight to citizens in the freest and most prosperous nation in the world. The Democrat Socialists of America, with Zohran Mamdani as their figurehead, have taken this messaging to the next level. Boomers have cheated you. Big tech is going to destroy your life. The whole economy is under the control of a couple of billionaires that hate you. Capitalism is a system designed by the owning class to exploit the rest of us for their own profit, said the DSA. Here in New York City, the local DSA has connected the dots even more explicitly. In a 2023 town hall, The group tackled the important question of our age, like, does capitalism upset our mental equilibrium? Quote, as socialists, we want to develop an anti-capitalist vision for mental health. The politics of suffering and victimization pairs perfectly with a population eager to identify with their struggles rather than their strengths. In recent years, claiming mental illness has become chic in progressive spaces, conferring socially valuable oppression points in the battle to prove who is most downtrodden. You've heard me say this on the program so many times. If you prove that you're the most aggrieved, you're the most offended, you're the most, as she put here, downtrodden, you are the most popular in these liberal circles, in the Democrat Socialists of America and the liberal circles in general. You've got to prove that you're the most aggrieved, the most offended, and that, sadly, is what makes you cool in those circles. A 2026 study analyzing survey data from 2022 found that mental illness itself is increasingly a part of a political identity among younger and more liberal Americans. Considering mental health a political identity was also associated with believing one faced societal unfairness and wanting greater government spending. This all makes one wonder whether our epidemic of anxiety and depression may be exacerbated by left-wing political messages, which actively seek to disempower individuals and make them dependent on political saviors to come in and defend them against the big bad system. Perhaps it's not a coincidence that those on the left are far more likely to have sought professional help for mental health reasons. According to the same general social survey, progressives were more than twice as likely as conservatives to have gone to a doctor or psychologist for mental health issues in the past year. All this makes the gap between conservatives and liberal mental health start to make more sense. Their political differences aren't just a matter of superficial policy. For many on the left, their politics is intertwined with a deep identification with suffering and lack of agency. The DSA will continue to pepper millennials and Zoomers with a doom view of their own life. Sure, it may be politically expedient, but also risks further disempowering their supporters and sending their mental health into even darker places. I just thought that was great from Ricky Schlott, and that ties in, like we said, with the indoctrination in the schools. This new, it's not even that new. I mean, we're talking, got to be going on probably over 10 years now, since kind of the rise, if you will, of President Trump, where, yes, if you're the most aggrieved, you're the most offended, you are the most popular person in the left-wing circles. You're cool. That makes you rock and roll. And it's a disturbing trend, but that's why woke took off and so quickly, because, I always go back to this. You have to prove you're the most offended, but I always go back to the story. I remember when Colin Kaepernick first took his knee, and then the next week someone else took a knee, and then someone else raised a fist, and then someone combined both of them, because they all have to outdo each other to look the most woke. But this is kind of backfiring, and we're seeing this in the civil war in the Democrat Party. It's a really interesting place because you've got the Democrats, and I don't like using the term moderate, but let's just say kind of the establishment Democrats, the James Carvilles, the people like that. So you have the establishment Democrats facing the Democrat Socialists of America. As Melissa Del Rosa said, who's a Democrat who worked for Governor Cuomo, that DSA is a parasite, that they could not win on the ballot by themselves, so they've hijacked, if you will, the Democrat Party and taken that over. So you've got those two factions fighting each other. But then within the Democrat Socialists of America wing, you have fighting because, again, they each have to look like they're the most offended and they're the most aggrieved. So that's a really interesting scenario, too, where they have to act as if, even though you're a member of the DSA, you don't care enough. You're not forceful enough. And that's what we're seeing in general. And here's an example of this infighting. A prominent black Big Apple politician has compared Mayor Zohran Mamdani's comrades in the Democrat Socialist of America to white supremacists as a bitter rift between Democrats spilled onto social media. Queens Borough President Donovan Richards breathed new life into a long-standing complaint among minority lawmakers that the largely lily-white DSA ignores race in its own crusade to grow its ranks and dismantle capitalism. And we talked about that in the past. I can't remember who said it, but the kind of the troubling visual of the all-white DSA members chanting "You're next" at Hakeem Jeffries' picture at one of the election night events. where a DSA member won their primary. It is a group that is, as Craig McCarthy says, lily white. So Donovan Richards, Queensboro president, said, white supremacy comes in all forms. The slap erupted from a debate online after a report in the New York Times that highlighted how the extreme left wing of the Democrat Party focuses on furthering the group's agenda and largely has blinders on when it comes to Black and Latino members and issues important to them in the 5 boroughs. A DSA State Assembly member, Farrah Forrest, attacked the Times reporter and whined that the story omitted that a Black member of the group has repped one of the events mentioned, seemingly without fully reading the story. Richard has responded after another journalist pointed out the article had already addressed her complaint. He then doubled down on the accusations, sharing a famous Malcolm X quote that casually labeled white liberals dangerous foxes who also show their teeth but pretend that they are smiling. Show their teeth to Black members but pretend that they are smiling. And I don't want to read this whole quote. But the DSA recent rise as a viable force with the Democrat Party stoked chatter of an intra-party civil war between the far-left radicals and more, quote, moderate establishment figures, sharply split on Israel and hiking taxes on the rich. If this were the kind of infighting that were happening in the Republican Party, it's all we would hear about. If you've noticed, you really need to go to more conservative outlets to hear about this infighting. Yeah, you can see it. You can see it for yourself, but that doesn't mean that the mainstream media is going to report on it. That's the big difference. But this should be noted because this is right before the midterm elections. And for all the DSA's lip service on race and social justice, many minority voters in New York and beyond look askance at its actual policies and priorities, with the National Black Empowerment Action Fund, for one, contending their agenda is bad for African Americans. The DSA has backed candidates from minority backgrounds, including 2 of its most prominent members, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Zohran Mamdani, but the group's makeup is overwhelmingly white. A 2021 survey found that 85% of DSA is white. The group has also faced accusation that it uses vulnerable districts to parachute in one of its own people instead of recruiting a candidate, often in opposition to seasoned Black and Latino contenders. So basically saying they want their handpicked person, let them swoop in. Mamdani himself, during the June Democratic primaries, endorsed 2 DSA congressional candidates against politicians with proven track records and minority backgrounds. Chevalier and Valdez both won the contest, largely carrying areas flush with upper-income, young, and white voters. Political operative Ryan Adams, who works as managing director at Actum, pointed out the DSA previously lost races in neighborhoods where the population is made up overwhelmingly with people of color before the generational political talent Mamdani became their standard bearer. Quote, while they are electing diverse candidates, the growth of DSA is coming in places that are seeing the most gentrification. Socialism has a long history with communities of color, but it's hard to argue the recent activity has been deeply intertwined within the community. Richards is a liberal Democrat who has represented Queens for more than 13 years after being elected borough president in 2020, following an 8-year stint on the city council. All right, enough on that. But this infighting continues, where the DSA is being accused of white supremacy, of basically hand-picking their candidate to beat incumbents with good track records on minority policies. So we'll see where that all leads. But again, not necessarily something that the mainstream media is talking about. All right, we've got other updates on the Democrat Party. We are going to give you some New York State updates as well. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and a drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we head through.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. Comment from a viewer. The Cuban ideology sounds very much like the Democrats' agenda. Just consider all that the Democrats stand for and compare it with what was just reported. Prove me wrong. Also, given the radically violent leftist liberals, it's no wonder that they need a psychiatrist to think for them. However, it is clear that the mental health professionals are not doing a very good job. Thank you very much. So it's this Troy Jackson is set to succeed Graham Plantner as the Democrat pick in the Maine Senate race. What is really interesting about this, and I don't know why this is happening now. I don't know if those in the media believe that he's not a viable candidate, because CNN did, it's got to be 10 pages. CNN did an expose over Mr. Jackson's past about these angry outbursts. We're going to tell you about that in just a second. But I can't quite figure out why CNN's reporting on that yet, unless they believe there's a better candidate that stands a better chance of beating Republican Susan Collins. Former logger and one-time Maine Senate President Troy Jackson is on course to replace accused rapist Graham Plantner as the Democrat Senate nominee following a series of party caucuses over the weekend. As a result, from the Pine Tree State's 16 counties, it showed Jackson running away with the committed delegate count. Would-be contender Nirav Shah, former head of the state's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, State Secretary of State Shana Bellows, Maine Beer Company founder Dan Kleben, and ex-congressional hopeful Jordan Wood dropped out one by one. Jackson's nomination will be made official at a statewide convention this Saturday in Bangor. According to the Bangor Daily News, Jackson has secured at least 456 of the 500 delegates awarded following the county meetings. The convention will consist of approximately 600 delegates, giving the 58-year-old an overwhelming lead. Even before the contest began, many viewed Jackson as the favorite to succeed Plantner, given his populist brand of politics. Jackson was endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders in the Maine governor's race, but ultimately finished third in the ranked choice voting behind Shaw and the eventual nominee, former state representative Hannah Pingree. Plantner officially withdrew. We know all about that. Now, the former logger has a history of taking conservative positions on social issues despite having left-wing economic views. A one-time Republican, Troy Jackson once got a 100% rating from the Maine Right to Life for opposing pro-choice legislation. Jackson also voted against legalizing same-sex marriage in 2009. In 2022, he backed legislation to restrict non-Americans from traveling to the Pine Tree State for work, even if they had the proper paperwork. All right. That's going to be interesting. Now, that could be one of the reasons why CNN is bringing out the long knives against Mr. Jackson. This is how it kicks off, this piece. In the insular world of Maine politics, it's known as the water bottle incident. The moment happened some 5 years ago when then State Senate President Troy Jackson clashed with fellow Democrats during a private meeting inside the state capitol. Jackson, a gruff former logger who has now capitulated, not the right word, catapulted into position as the likely Democrat nominee for U.S. Senate, grew so angry with one female lawmaker that he hurled a plastic water bottle at her. Now that's where the stories diverge. The female legislator told colleagues that the incident deeply frightened her because she felt Jackson was aiming to hit her with the bottle, according to 5 sources who learned of the incident shortly after it occurred. The legislator was distraught as she left the meeting that day. Months later, she decided not to run for re-election, in part, she told colleagues, because of Jackson's conduct. Jackson's campaign acknowledged to CNN that he had thrown the water bottle during the meeting, but disputed he had lobbed it in anyone's direction, saying, quote, Troy Jackson is passionate and deeply invested in the people and policies he advocates for. Over 22 years in public office, there have been moments when he let his frustration get the better of him. When that happened, he took responsibility and apologized directly at the time. The statement said that an eyewitness recalled the bottle was thrown away from everyone and struck no one, the campaign said, in referencing to Mark Lawrence, the state senator in the room for the confrontation. He said that he saw the bottle being thrown away from others in the room. Either way, the incident has raised vigorous debates within Maine's Democrat establishment, still reeling from its former nominee, Graham Plattner. Now, Jackson has not been accused of any physical abuse or criminal wrongdoing, and even as critics are quick to separate his conduct from the allegations of Plattner, all 5 people who described the thrown water bottle were Democrats involved in local politics who requested anonymity for fear of retribution. In a later Democratic caucus meeting, Jackson did address the water bottle incident and apologized, though it was not enough for some of the female lawmaker allies, according to 2 people in the room. I know we're giving this a lot of time, but this is CNN reporting on this with Troy Jackson. The water bottle clash, which was first reported by the Washington Post, was not a one-off for a lawmaker also known for pounding on desks, storming out of rooms, getting into shouting matches with members of his own party, and swearing at colleagues, with one ex-colleague resorting to recording meetings out of concern over his behavior. Critics say his brash conduct, particularly with female colleagues, raised alarm bells about his temperament as a nominee for a key Senate race. It felt like he was using his body and his voice to make people fearful. I was in a room multiple times where he escalated the situation with both the intent and natural ability to really intimidate using his physical presence. Jackson's team said in a statement that he was involved in heated, often two-way disputes over consequential legislation among powerful elected leaders. There are many more instances of Troy working alongside those same colleagues to deliver universal school meals, paid family and medical leave, and prescription drug relief for Maine families. Troy regrets the moments when disagreements became too heated, but passion for the issues he advocates for should not be confused with physical intimidation or bullying. Because you got to remember, this is a left turning on the left here. So again, they've got to be the most offended, the most aggrieved. So they felt physically attacked, even though it's more just aggressive. But they, of course, are going to use language like intimidation and retaliation and the like. His campaign also disputed the fact that his confrontations were never aimed specifically at female colleagues, arguing that many of Jackson's fellow top Democrats were women, and so it was not surprising that some of his more contentious conversations involved them. So we're good. Listen, I'll keep sitting back and watching exactly how this is going to go. Why CNN is reporting on this makes me feel that they may not think he's the best candidate. Some of those interviewed by CNN said they were speaking out because they wanted Jackson to publicly address what they viewed as anger issues, particularly towards women, and work to resolve it ahead of the general election when he would take on Collins. Yeah. Stacey Leafsong, a progressive organizer who held an event for Jackson, who at the time was running for governor, and Plattner, early in the campaign cycle, told CNN that she is not concerned about Jackson's temperament. There's no comparison between him and Graham. But that's interesting to me, though. So Graham Plattner, they all supported him right up till the end, and now they're acting like obviously that was the worst candidate they could have ever picked. Okay. And notice how they have to do this. I think he's a good guy. He's the real deal, that quote-unquote manly man that they're looking for in the Democrat Party. One person who worked closely with Jackson stressed that it is no longer acceptable to treat other people with disdain, disregard, and disrespect, and he's got a lot to learn. If he does become our candidate, he needs to address how he's going to be a leader, not just for the bros, that means the Bernie bros that the left is not very happy with right now, but for all of us. All right, we got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Around the southern tier, Finger Lake stands out for its scenery and wine scene. This year's dry drought brought some positives to the crop. Lee Com Center is looking for fans to show up and show out.
I had to pack up all my things. I had to leave my home. And I never knew where I was going next. It felt like I never even had a say. But then you came along.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at nationalcasagal.org.
Small businesses are the heart of America. Like you, these entrepreneurs started out with a dream and the drive to build a better life. If you have a small business idea to grow or challenge to face, you don't have to go it alone. Since 1964, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses. Today, they are the nation's largest nonprofit source of expert mentoring, resources, and education. Whether you're starting out, building back, or have worked at it for years, SCORE will match you with specialized mentors. Our thousands of volunteers provide the guidance and connections you need for free. Your success is waiting. SCORE is ready to help. Find a mentor today at SCORE.org.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. I mentioned earlier about Senator Mark Kelly. They're clearly, and we're just talking about the Democrat Party in general, but they're clearly wanting him to run for president in 2028. The Atlantic, I'm not even exaggerating here, I think it was 17 pages. And this glowing piece that they do for Democrats that you'll never see for Republicans. But what was being said at the time is that Barack Obama wanted Mark Kelly, to actually take the place of Joe Biden, take Joe Biden, have him quit, not make it Kamala Harris, make it Kelly. So if you want to find that for yourself at The Atlantic, feel free to read all 17 pages. Another rising star in the Democrat Party, this James Telrico. He was shouted at by angry voters over the weekend. He's running for United States Senate. The video posted by Austin American Statesman reporter Faith Bugenhagen. In it, the unidentified woman is heard yelling at Telrico, "You stay here. You answer our questions or you suffer the consequences." This also sounds like the left turning on the left. He said, "I'm happy to engage. We'll come to her in just a second. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you traveling in, and I appreciate. I did it for my people, not for you, the woman interjected as gasps were heard in the audience. I did it for my people, not for you. That's wonderful, Talrico said, stammering while chatter grew among audience members. It's all right. This is what this conversation's supposed to be about. All right, interesting. We'll see. Well, I don't know why the left is turning on the left in all these instances. Another candidate, Adam Hamilton, a frontrunner in the Kansas Democrat primary for Senate, is a Methodist pastor who believes that the Bible is full of errors. Hamilton is a senior pastor at Resurrection, a United Methodist Church, who is running for Senate, hoping to take down Republican Senator Roger Marshall. He wrote in a message to his congregation that he is running as an independent-minded candidate on the Democrat ticket for the United States Senate. He's largely running on, you guessed it, affordability, leaving social issues out of the way at the kickstart. However, he already had a record of controversial views, particularly his view that the Bible is full of errors. In a sermon titled, Is the Bible True?, Hamilton appears to conclude that it is not, at least not entirely. Quote, if I could prove just one mistake in the Bible, will I have won the debate? He said, absolutely. I said, okay. He said, detailing his conversation and knowing that he would think of hundreds of mistakes in God's words. I can think of hundreds, but let me just give you one. I said, where did Jesus ascend to heaven from? And he stopped for a second. I said, so you do remember, right? Let me just show you on the map here. In Luke's gospel, Jesus ascends to the heaven from the Mount of Olives by Jerusalem. In Matthew's gospel, Jesus ascends to heaven from Galilee. Okay, I don't know why I'm reading all this. However, Hamilton is wrong. Matthew actually does not provide a location for Jesus' ascension to his Father, to the Father. The gospel ends detailing Jesus giving the Great Commission on or near a mountain in Galilee, but there's no mention of the ascension. Anyway, it seems like a weird position to take as a Methodist pastor. Now, on another, I'm just going through some candidates here. Why not, right? Because we still got to get to New York State issues. AOC. Many people believe that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run for president. She was, I would consider her one of the early adapters, if you will, to the Democrat Socialists of America, kind of one of their rising stars. Well, not any longer. Again, probably because she's thinking of running for president. She says she has not ruled out a 2028 run as she faces criticism. She's saying, I'm working class, not a militant leftist. So AOC, again, let's just quote her again. AOC says, quote, I'm working class, not a militant leftist. Interesting. She told outlets that she felt it was potentially alienating to voters if Democrats spoke only from a place of disconnected partisan motivation, and stressed the importance of providing real solutions to the economic problems they face. I come from a working class family. I didn't come from a militant leftist family. I believe these are the prescriptions that are going to help us as a country. And so I think that when we talk about this in a frame, it helps people understand that our conclusions are not just from the disconnected partisan motivations, but it's from a motivation to solve the real inequality that has been hurting us as a country. Axios recently reported that AOC had fumed in private about criticism she has received from left-wing allies for supposedly getting too close to the establishment. And we had that piece for you last week where the DSA believes that she is a sellout, that she isn't far left enough. She called the article unfair and counterproductive. It quoted an unnamed strategist who said she lamented that the left was not there for her, that they are never pleased. Yeah, but isn't that AOC to a bit? I mean, yes, they're never pleased. You have to be in 100% adherence to their worldview. But guess what? That adherence to that worldview could change at the drop of a dime. That's the biggest kind of the moving hurdles, the moving goalposts. And she's complaining about that now when she was very much a deep part of it. The group alleged that she had conflated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism and condemned boycotting Zionist institutions, which it called a deep betrayal. So that's a deep betrayal of their beliefs in the Democrat Party, or in the DSA, I should say. And also, I don't know what it is about Democrats doing this, but did you see that AOC, because again, probably is going to run, she attempted to do a Southern accent, basically during her speech in Tennessee, at her campaign stop in Tennessee. She broke out in a faux Southern accent during a Saturday campaign appearance. Hillary Clinton did it. I don't know who's telling these candidates to do this in the Democrat Party. Hillary did it. Kamala Harris did it. Now AOC. So most likely either going to run for president or run against Chuck Schumer for that Senate seat. She was giving that campaign rally, dropped her Bronx sound, and went for a Southern sound. I don't know. I don't know why this is a common thing in the Democrat Party. Ocasio-Cortez's attempted accent appears similar to the variety of accents that Kamala Harris deployed while campaigning. You know, Hillary Clinton did as well. But enough on that. Very strange. Very, very strange. All right, so we talked about Mamdani. We might have a little bit about that, but I do want to get to New York State issues because we only got about 20 minutes left. So stay with us. We will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
New York State is putting nearly $60 million towards improving key roadways across the southern tier.
Many older homes are still at risk for exposing residents to high levels of lead.
The Nani Hood Parent Resource Center once again brought the community together for its annual Halloween parade.
Program helps reduce the risk of falls, improves safety, and increases accessibility and independence. Through this program, Rebuilding Together works with older adults to provide no-cost preventative home repairs so our neighbors can safely age in place in the homes and communities they love. To learn more, visit rebuildingtogether.org/safeathome.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we head through.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from Ken, who writes, and I think the biggest motivator that the Democrats and now the Democrat socialists use is jealousy. It's easy to make the sheeple rationalize that a way of getting some of what the millionaires and billionaires have is to have someone take it from them and give it to the sheeple. What the sheeple don't understand is that most of the Democrats and some Republicans are the ones using the public to enrich themselves. Thank you. Appreciate that, Ken. Okay, I had mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, but didn't get into the specifics. The Department of Justice filed a motion in U.S. District Court on Monday arguing that New York statutes requiring law enforcement officers interacting with the public to forego face coverings and display clear identification are an unconstitutional legislative overreach. The federal government also asserts that the state has no more right to dictate whether ICE agents wear face coverings or what weapons they carry than it does to require that they wear pink. Quote, by New York's logic, it would require officers to wear masks, dictate that weapons are used, micromanage the training of K-9s, and require ICE agents to wear pink, all under the threat of prosecution because none of those laws would prohibit federal officials from carrying out their duties and arresting or detaining individuals. This absurd result has no basis in law. This is why, absent an injunction, other states are more likely to join New York in its attempt to micromanage a federal function. The legal battle over the recently enacted New York state law is unfolding in U.S. District Court in Albany after dueling lawsuits over the statutes filed by the Justice Department and State Attorney General's Office. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. The new law also applies to state and local police, prohibiting them from concealing their identity with masks while interacting with the public. But there are exceptions to the mask rule, including the officers who are working in an undercover capacity. State police issues masks to their investigators who work undercover, for example. Tom Homan, who oversees border security and immigration enforcement for President Trump, has said that federal homeland security policies allow federal agents to wear masks at all times due to a sharp increase in assaults as well as threats that they have received over the past 18 months. Well, this goes back, we know, with the doxing and the threats. One of the arguments being made by the Justice Department in its challenge of the law is that the prohibits apply only to law enforcement officers rather than all citizens, as would laws that apply to criminal charges such as murdering or driving while intoxicated. New York cannot claim its laws are general because they apply to state and federal law enforcement officers alike. All right. Now, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul says that tax hikes harm New York. Can you believe this? Kathy Hochul last week proudly went after Mayor Zohran's Mamdani's Tax the Rich crusade, apparently betting that no one will recall the hikes she signed on to before, nor the ones she'll likely support if she can just win one more election. New York, quote, should not be raising taxes on high net worth individuals or raising taxes on the companies that are creating the jobs and generating the revenue that helps us pay for the services, she said on Good Day New York. She's hiked one tax or another every year since she's been in the governor's mansion. She first proposed and then imposed the new two-house tax to help Mamdani tax the rich. And it's already having the very sinking economic impact she claims to fear. The budget she recently pushed through tax hikes on businesses by decoupling the state code from how federal law treats R&D costs, research and development. In her 5 years as governor, she has twice extended the corporate franchise tax on firms earning more than $5 million. The list goes on and on and on. Then again, Cuomo had also claimed to think New Yorkers were already overtaxed before he made things even worse. So it must be a trend in the governor's mansion. And the governor won't need to raise any more campaign funds ever after this November. So why would she resist giving in to the DSA? Kathy Hochul clearly knows how badly high taxes hurt New York, but it hasn't stopped her from, and it won't stop her ever again. Now, speaking of that, how am I doing on time? We're doing okay. Since we're talking about the education system, did you see that New York leads the nation in school spending? Even though schools have shrunk 12% in 15 years? Empire State enrollment could see another double-digit decrease by 2031 as population growth stagnates and its birth rates plummet. Of course, we've got people leaving the state in droves. The reckoning will force policymakers to consider controversial decisions like closing or merging schools and reducing staff to continue to prop up facilities with a dearth of students. Public school enrollment has declined in every region over the past decade, reflecting broader demographic trends and slower population growth. Enrollment declines have been particularly pronounced outside the New York City metropolitan area, creating new challenges for school districts as they balance staffing, facilities, and educational programming with fewer students. Overall, statewide public school enrollment declined by 322,808 students to 2.38 million. New York City had the smallest decline. And I mentioned this because I thought this was, from the Post editorial board, I thought this was a good way to kind of tie this all in. Soaring spending, falling enrollment, continued academic mediocrity. New York State's public education trends mirror the city's, and for the same reason, this system serves the financial interest of adults far more than the educational needs of children. So again, 12% fewer students, but yet we spend far more per student than any other state, about $32,000 a student. Indeed, K through 12 public school enrollment fell in every New York county from the 2009-2010 to the 2025-2026 school year. But the results are middling at best. On gold standard National Assessment of Educational Progress testing, our students score right in the middle on reading and a bit lower on math. Massachusetts, which ranks first, spends 23% less per student than New York. By the way, it says here New Jersey also outdoes New York while spending 17% less. One part of the problem, the Empire State's rules that effectively let the Assembly Speaker choose the member of the Board of Regents who oversees the state education department. And the current Speaker, Carl Hastie, needed teacher union support to win the job, in large part because the unions have long made Albany Power their number one political goal Not that they don't wield immense local power, too. This doesn't let Governor Hochul off the hook. She still has huge power over the state budget, yet that goes along with every rising school spending, including this insane hold harmless standard that prevents cuts in state funding through enrollment drops, even in areas where it's down 20%. Indeed, the governor boasts of her administration's record investment in school spending, though those investments plainly only pay off for the people employed in public education, not the actual students. It's not just the teachers' union that feed off of this spendapalooza. Local political machines exploit the public schools in a host of ways, with jobs and contracts distributed to office holders' allies. But the bottom line is that New York State spends 81% above the national per-pupil average on public schools purely to benefit adults, not kids. The high cost of taxpayers and the poor return to students is another reason for the slow exodus out of the state. New York is too busy redistributing wealth to favored players to truly invest for the future. It's basically one vast racketeering enterprise, immoral, even if it's completely illegal. All right, when we return, getting ready to wrap up today's edition, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
Get ready for the 185th Chemung County Fair. 5 days of family fun. August 4th through August 8th at the Chemung County Fairgrounds in Horseheads. Experience thrilling rides, exciting games, and captivating livestock shows. Taste delicious fair food and explore local vendors. Rust and Fright Concert August 4th. Tractor Pull August 5th. Rodeo August 6th. Truck Pull August 7th. Demolition Derby August 8th. Join us for the 185th Chemung County Fair, where tradition meets excitement. Visit ChemungCountyFair.com for tickets and details.
You can just keep watching and scrolling, and the world will still feel like it's falling apart.
Widespread missile highest hospitalization.
Or you can take action by joining a movement that's creating real and lasting change instead. Partnering with communities around the globe to help uproot poverty and plant seeds of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Because at World Vision, we believe that no situation is hopeless. Join a movement that's changing the world for good.
More cars, lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Whether you're in the market for new, used, or certified pre-owned, Simmons Rockwell locations across the Twin Tiers have more of what you're looking for with our best price right on the windshield. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
Live a carefree, engaging lifestyle at Apple Ridge Senior Living, where exceptional is the standard. It's time to redefine your future. Pursue your passions and make meaningful connections. Enjoy an inclusive and customizable senior living experience. Everything you could want, more than you expect. Visit appleridgeseniorliving.com and schedule your tour today.
Meteorologist Brandon Weathers, we'll be monitoring thunderstorms that may have potential for some damaging winds, large hail, and possibly tornado development as we head through our Tuesday afternoon and evening. A high of 81. We're bottoming out around 62 overnight, staying with some scattered storms. Then 76 on Wednesday with a slight chance for lingering. A bit cooler behind this front. We'll stick with some sunshine, 77 Thursday. A gradual warming trend as we head through.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. It's just being reported that the Treasury stopped nearly $100 million in taxpayer money from going to dead people after a new government measure was implemented. This is just being reported by the New York Post. The Treasury Department has blocked nearly $100 million in taxpayer money from going to dead people since implementing a government-wide payment verification process last year. Wow. All right. Some comments from viewers. Mark writes in, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. Doesn't New York State lawmakers have better things to do instead of renaming parents and inmates? That's totally ridiculous. Next, a thief will be a borrower. Yes, I guess they don't have anything else to do. This is a kind of a common thing. And then you've got the back and forth of, well, is that kind enough to the criminals, or we got to come up with a different name? I don't know. It gets a little much. Rick writes in, says, good morning, Frank. Good morning, Rick. Let's see. 100 American troops injured in the last 3 weeks. 3 troops killed in Iran. No Department of Defense briefing in weeks. Glad Trump has control of this thing. He has no plan, no direction, and no support for this war. He is a totally incompetent fool. He has no business holding the office he does. This will be a long, drawn-out war with no trophy for Donald. Now the Houthis are talking about shutting down the Strait and the Red Sea. Let's expand the war. That peace through strength commercial needs to go away. What a bunch of manure. Donald the gangster Trump made over $2 billion last year. He needs to be investigated just like any other gangster. Trouble is, he controls all the Republicans and all the government agencies that would investigate this. So if you like your job, leave Donald alone. And Mom Donnie wants to have Netanyahu arrested for war crimes when Netanyahu goes to the UN in September. Please do. What he did to the citizens of Gaza is pure evil. Maybe they should just turn him over to the Palestinians. Donald's rub my back, I'll rub yours airplane needs more security work. That plane in Donald's swimming pool will cost a few $1 million more. Don is off to a good start this week. That's Rick. All right, back to New York State issues. Democrats are eyeing momentum. They're not taking the 2026 elections lightly. It was just a few short weeks ago that Democrats in New York lost a handful of seats in Congress. A few short years ago. I hope I didn't. Did I say weeks? A few short years ago, the Democrats in New York lost a handful of seats in Congress that could have otherwise allowed their party to control the U.S. House. That was Governor Hochul's fault. She was the de facto head of the state Democrat committee, and Nancy Pelosi, remember, called her out and everything. But what they're saying is they're not taking anything lightly. They believe they have this momentum at their back, meaning the Democrats. And if you look at the numbers we had reported to you last week, Bruce Blakeman has about $11 million in the bank, which is not bad. Kathy Hochul having 20, but she also has that extra 20 in the Democrat Party if she needs to use it. All right. Wow, we are out of time. Three quick things. Border czar Tom Homan clashed with Margaret Brennan on CBS over the fatal Houston ICE shooting. If you watch Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan is one of the people that shows her activism in the way she asks questions, that you do know that, and, very condescending. I don't quite get her appeal or why Republicans are on her program so often. But bottom line is, we'll see when the investigation plays out, but they'd be alive today if they simply complied with a vehicle stop by federal law enforcement officers. Just comply, Homan said. Brennan said, well, the family of the man in Houston said that he thought he was being robbed because it was an unmarked vehicle. No, that it was law enforcement at all, not even knowing it was law enforcement at all. Homan maintained the ICE vehicles contain equipment allowing officers to identify themselves during stops. They had emergency lights, active emergency lights, blue lights. In my vehicle I drive, where I'm with my security detail, we have emergency lights. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going back and forth with Margaret Brennan. There should be no surprise there. Bill Maher says it's so stupid for anti-Trump artists to not perform at the Kennedy Center. That's so stupid. First of all, you're just giving him the victory. He doesn't own the Kennedy Center. He doesn't own comedy. Life goes on. That's the message I would send. I've always watched the Kennedy Center honors. This was kind of like that, but for one guy. It's the same thing. You're up in the box. It's awesome. It's great, and it's rare, and it's America, and he doesn't own that either. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I want to thank everybody who joined us. Oh, there's the body cam footage of Sonny Hoiston trying to get her son out of that legal mess of trespassing, saying to the officers, my name is Sonny Hoiston, and I'm one of the co-hosts of The View, and I'm a former federal prosecutor. That's my son. He's a Harvard graduate. He doesn't have a criminal record. He's not a kid who's ever in trouble. It's an innocent mistake. That does it for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. On tomorrow's broadcast, we're going to be talking with our good friend Doc Possum, who sends all that great music in for the Salvation Army Telethon every Christmas. We're going to find out how he's doing. He's got some special kids entertainment coming up that we're going to learn all about. That's on tomorrow's broadcast. So make sure that you tune in tomorrow and every weekday morning. And since that gives me just 1 second before we go, again, that Salvation Army match in the Christmas in July campaign is still available to July 31st. We want to get to that $1,000 mark because then it'll be doubled. So if you're not a QR person, let me know. I can send you the link directly. But I just do that too because Doc Possum's going to be in. He does so much for the Salvation Army of Corning with that telethon. Otherwise, we'll be taking your comments tomorrow on the broadcast. If you have any questions for Doc Possum, by all means, get them to me ahead of time. We would love to hear from you, and I'm sure he would love to hear. And I got to say, he may be able to do a song. We'll have to see if he'll perform a number for us on tomorrow's broadcast. Also, congratulations. We mentioned this on Friday, but congratulations to our winner of the 2 tickets for Bubbly and Brunch. Don't forget the Bubbly and Brunch for Student Senior Services Fund, that fundraiser. The silent auction is now online. You can find that at their website, but also that their event is coming up this Sunday at 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. at the Corning Museum of Glass. We'll find out how it goes after the fact. We'll get all of that information. But that does it. I know I've said it. That does it. Join us every weekday morning starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV Big Fox. We'll see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.
I just love coming in after they've been here and seeing everything clean and tidy. It's such a good way to start the week.
Sometimes I wonder if they are magic.
I feel like it's the details that is everything. The being able to pick up on things that most people don't see or don't even think about.
House, business, or anything else, go with Magic Rags. The Enchanted Crew has you covered from ceiling to floor.
Get ready 185th Chemung County Fair. 5 days of family fun. August 4th through August 8th at the Chemung County Fairgrounds in Horseheads. Experience thrilling rides, exciting games, and captivating livestock shows. Taste delicious fair food and explore local vendors. Rust and Fright Concert August 4th. Tractor Pull August 5th. Rodeo August 6th. Truck Pull August 7th. Demolition Derby August 8th. Join us for the 185th Chemung County Fair, where tradition meets excitement. Visit ChemungCountyFair.com for tickets and details.